Let me introduce you to your new defense against the dark arts teacher. Me.
Thank you for joining me. My name is Bjorn. Today we are going to be looking at what I can only describe as an insanely self-proclaimed expert in all things, a dashingly handsome and charming individual, and a disgustingly outward narcissist, Gilderoy Lockhart, and just how we are going to be able to perhaps best portray this character through roleplay and abilities surrounding a build I felt would best suit this playstyle. Now, without a doubt, this was inspired by Travis Willingham's recent performance as Sir Bertrand Bell in the Search for Grog's one-shot. It reminded me so deeply of Lockhart that I wanted to roll with it and combine the both. I will give two warnings here. One, I suggest avoiding simply recreating the exact story of Gilderoy himself and to instead come up with your own backstory, as this tends to be a great deal more satisfying. And two, don't be a dick. Make sure that your table has a clear social contract and that this is clearly all in the name of some good fun. Now, if you're looking for some help on how to roleplay a narcissist, I go over that in detail at the end of the video in an overview. Now, hopefully with the social and the moral implications of the loaded gun I could possibly be handing to somebody here off of my hands, I feel it's time to proceed into the build itself. As we see here, this is what I have ended off with for a build, being a Fighter 11 the Eldritch Knight, the College of Glamour Bard level 6, and ending off with a Hexblade Warlock level 3. If you'd like to object in saying that everyone from the Harry Potter universe is in fact some variant of a sorcerer or a wizard, then I say have fun with that. I instead like to focus on what I felt would best suit the personality of a character in which I'm looking to play. And for this myself, it makes playing a character far more interesting than strictly sticking to what this one character should be based off on just purely outwards appearances. Since we are going to be multi-classing with this character, there are going to be some requirements that we need to attain. For the fighter, it will be a strength or a dexterity of 13. I'm leaning this character to the dex side, and for the bard and the warlock, it will be a charisma of 13. For your stat priority, I would recommend having your charisma as your highest possible stat, followed by your dexterity, then intelligence, then your constitution. I would say focus on your strength and your wisdom for being your dump stats. For some reason, I don't particularly view this character as being all too wise. Of course, the background choice is up to you and should lend itself to whatever you and your DM have worked on. However, I would suggest perhaps taking a look at the noble background, as this gives us an interesting feature alongside giving us our skill proficiencies in performance and animal handling. As for the race of choice, there wasn't anything I was particularly drawn to with this character, besides maybe perhaps playing an elf or a half-elf. I felt that was a bit too easy though, and I also felt it would be nice for myself to play human since I rarely do. As well with this, we will also be gaining a feat that we'll be losing out because of our multi-classing. For the ASI, I am investing mine into dexterity and into charisma. For our skill, I am investing mine into persuasion. And for our feat of choice, we will be investing into the prodigy feat. This will be giving us our deception, a disguise kit, in which I'm purely going to be using to do my makeup with the character, a language of choice, and also we get to expertise the skill, in which I've chosen persuasion. Starting with the fighter, we're going to be gaining a few advantages. With our proficiencies, we gain, most importantly, the constitution saving throw. This is going to help us with some spells later down the line of keeping concentration. As well, we choose the athletics and the history skill. For our fighting style, I chose the dueling. I felt that Lockhart's personality, alongside with my own character, that their weapon of choice would be the rapier. We also gain the second wind feature, which for us will equate to 1d10 plus 11 once everything is all said and done. Second level, we gain the action surge, which is awesome, and then coming to third, we get to choose our archetype. This is where we choose the Eldritch Knight. I thought that this would best keep in line with that idea of a charming and dashing individual, wielding that beautiful rapier, while still maintaining that sense of awe through any spells that we cast, only furthering our ego. As with this choice, we gain some spellcasting abilities and the weapon bond feature. It's quite beneficial. I will explain it further down the road once we get further into the class. Fourth level, we go ahead and gain a new ASI, and we go with the actor feat here, furthering our charisma, as well as aiding us in our guise of being a truly confident person instead of the fraud that we are. Fifth level, we gain our first of 2 extra attacks. Sixth level, we gain the medium armor feat. Personally, I love the aesthetic feel of being in half plate for this character. And now this is where I feel I will personally be jumping off the fighter train for a bit to get all my other classes in. This is due to us having a decent enough ability to keep up with our group, and I felt that there were some things, if we gained them sooner through our Bard and then our Warlock, it would aid us a bit better in our roleplay. With that, we gain our first level into the Bard. This grants us 2 proficiencies of choice, one being a musical instrument of choice. I felt that this character, being a bit more naturally cowardly, would have, at this point, realized the benefit of stealthing around, and thus becoming more proficient with it. Of course, too, at this level, we gain our Bardic Inspiration. Coming into 2nd level, we gain the Song of Rest, a perfect time to tell tales of your exploits and adventure. I would suggest aiming to make people question if they even want to take those hit points. As well, at 2nd level, we gain the Jack of all trades. This I felt was most fitting of his character. Always seeking fame, never truly mastering anything. More on that in the overview to come. And coming down into 3rd, we get to choose our college. What else would we go with but the College of Glamour? With joining this college, we gain 2 main things, the Mantle of Inspiration and Enthralling Presence. Mantle is overall a beneficial effect that we can use to aid our own party members, granting them temporary hit points, as well as allowing to use their reactions to move their speed without provoking opportunity of attacks. This can be extraordinarily useful for many different reasons, mainly for yourself. Now that your party, who either have found your quirks or your behavior to be perhaps somewhat endearing, now they have a good reason to keep you around instead of probably just bait. And enthralling performance helps lend ourselves to being able to more actively woo over the crowds in our favor. After all, Lockhart was still able to win over many unaware hearts. As well, at 3rd, we get to choose 2 skills to bump up to an expertise, in which I chose both performance and deception, furthering our false image of ourselves. At 4th level, we choose yet another feat, going with the Warcaster. This is an amazing feat to have for this build, allowing our spells to be cast while wielding a shield and a weapon, having advantage on concentration saving throws, and being able to cast a spell as a reaction. 5th level, we gain the Font of Inspiration, allowing us to regain those bardic dice back on short rest now. And coming down into 6th, we gain Counter Charm, which used properly would be quite ironic for your group at this point, I'm sure. And as well, we gain the Mantle of Majesty, allowing us to once a day, for a minute, cast command as a bonus action without expending any spell slots. This would be an extremely devastating ability in the hands of any narcissistic jackass. Which now brings us to an end for our multi-class into Bard, which now we shall be moving into the Warlock. With 1st level Warlock, we choose our Pact, that being the Pact of the Blade. This grants us some very nice benefits, that lying in the Hex Warrior and the Hexblade's Curse. With the Hex Warrior, we now benefit from the Charisma to our damaging rolls for our Rapier, thus taking off pressure to aiming for high stats in both Charisma and Dexterity. However, I would recommend aiming for that 16 into Dex if you plan on going the half-plate route, gaining full benefits from the Medium Armor Master feat. And with the Hexblade's Curse, we gain an insane ability. We get to add more damage to our hits based off on our proficiency, as well as what is a class feature for the champion fighter, critting on a 19 or a 20, and being able to regain a consistent amount of health all under one spell. This is a crazy ability. Coming into 2nd level, we get to choose some Eldritch Invocations. I would recommend being a human that you take Devil Sight. This will be changed in just 1 level, as well as take Masks of Many Faces. I felt that this was something extremely powerful to be had, and with how our toolkit is already set up, it was hard for me to pass on this. Coming into the 3rd level Warlock, we'll be gaining a Pact boon, in which we'll be taking the Pact of the Chain. This is due in part because we already have the Weapon Bond ability from our fighter, which makes Pact of the Blade not quite as widely beneficial to us as Pact of the Chain. This is because, too, once we gain this boon, we'll be switching out our Devil Sight for the voice of the Chain Master. Now, both of these grant us quite a few different things. With the Pact of the Chain, we get to choose some more unique and more useful familiars of choice here. And alongside with us going with the voice of the Chain Master, this can effectively turn us into a long-range scout, a long-range messenger, something that we can actually start to benefit other people a bit more. As well, one thing that we do lose, we can't see in magical darkness anymore. However, I felt that the trade-off for not being able to see in magical darkness and the utility that this pet provides, I felt it was a worthwhile trade-off. Now, with all of our multi-classing out of the way, we're now at level 15. We're going to head back into the fighter and finish off our stretch to 20. At 7th level fighter, we gain War Magic. It has some interesting uses. At 8th level fighter, we take the Lucky feat. This is, of course, our last feat that we'll be able to choose from. So while this is an extremely good feat, if you don't have your Charisma maxed out by this point, I would suggest bumping that up as much as needed. At 9th level, we gain the Indomitable ability. This is an excellent utility tool for us. At 10th level, we gain the Eldritch Strike, a very powerful tool to be had, and this also applies to any spell we cast, regardless of the source from which we've gained them. And finally, at 11th level fighter, level 20 total, we gain our final extra attack. This brings our leveling to a finale. Now, I do have some quick spell suggestions. Of course, it's not hard to pick out spells, but I would recommend that for this character, since we're going to have a decent amount of cantrips here, I would recommend that each class should take away certain ones that you gain from it. Through Fighter, Dancing Lights, Firebolt, and Prestidigitation, this gives you a ranged ability through Firebolt, as well as being able to see in the dark until we gain our Warlock abilities with Dancing Lights and Prestidigitation to help fix up that makeup along the way. Through the Bard, I would recommend Friends, Mage Hand, and Vicious Mockery. Friends shall aid you through your manipulations. Mage Hand is an extraordinarily useful cantrip. And Vicious Mockery because I think it will be fun to awkwardly lay out some disses upon our foes. And through the Warlock, I suggest taking Eldritch Blast and Minor Illusion. Eldritch Blast, we haven't maxed out the damage potential here, however it does do force damage, so in select cases it can be very beneficial for us. And as well with Minor Illusion, this is a very powerful cantrip to be had. Now, with the overview, the first thing I'd like to jump into was how I mentioned how the Jack of all trades suits this character so very well. This is because he is the master of none. This extremely befits Lockhart's roleplay in a deeper way that I had been trying quite hard to attain with this build. I wanted to make it so that while you were playing with this character, you would still feel like you're able to keep up with damage for several reasons. For one, it'd be pretty shitty if you purposefully gimped out on your damage, because this leads into complications later on with possibly just throwing fights, and this can upset people in the group, especially if you get their other people killed, so this isn't good. We want to be able to keep up and survive. And two, Lockhart is an outward narcissist that looks to interjecting himself into whatever he or she can so that they can have the attention drawn onto them. Through Jack of all trades, we could literally throw ourselves into any situation and claim to have authority over the subject, although this is probably not true. I'll give an example from the film, and hopefully this clip, I don't have to edit it out.
Thank you.
Are you okay?
No, I think my arm's broken.
Not to worry, Harry. I will fix that arm of yours straight away.
No, not you.
Poor boy, he doesn't know what he's saying. Now, this won't hurt a bit. Brachiam. Emendo. Yes. Well, that can sometimes happen. But the point is, you can no longer feel any pain. And very clearly, the bones are not broken.
Broken? There's no bones left.
Now, whether I had to cut that clip out or not, let's go ahead and just get into the explanation of it. So when Harry broke his arm in the Quidditch match, Madame Pomfrey was clearly the correct choice to simply bring him to. However, Lockhart was looking to steal the glory by doing it himself. As well, this in a meta sense, thereby aiding the boy who lived in his journey for him to later claim any future victories from him as well. I digress, however. Clearly only having some sort of half proficiency within this school of magic to solve what should have been a simple solution. Instead, because this character lacks a clear focus, simply looking for that rush of attention, he spoofs the spell and causes Harry to no longer have any bone to be broken. And thereby using this to, instead of taking responsibility for his actions, he then deflects and attempts to point out a false narrative to salvage his own ego. So what can we learn from this scene, and how could we possibly apply it to ourselves to make our own humorous moments at the gaming table? I think the main thing that we can take away here for our own gain is seeing how the scene is set up. There's no immediate sign of life or death. This in essence is a mostly risk-free scenario, which went wrong only due to Lockhart's incompetence. And even though this was a clear setback for our main character, it overall had no real repercussions on him throughout the rest of the series. Now, am I saying to not do shit that causes no harm? No, probably don't give a shit. For you, it's all about that glory and attention seeking and never taking responsibility for your own failures. So subvert the blame. Except instead of focusing this onto other player characters, instead focus this more on NPCs that the DM presents. And of course you should also fuck with other player characters, but test the waters first, do smaller things, and let's look at an example of something smaller. So for something small, we can look towards, say, we have a sorcerer buddy, and we could say, for this example, we're both level 20. This sorcerer is the real fucking deal. Like, they can cast 9th level spells and do all sorts of crazy shit. However, our characters are built in a way that we can't get past level 3 spells on purpose, as well we are not proficient in the Arcana skill. Our image isn't just of us being that charismatic shit that woos over all the ladies and charms people, but also that of one of, we are the greatest spellcasters in all of the lands. I'll tell you, I've been all over the world. I've seen and dealt with all sorts of crazy beasts and creatures, delved into countless a ruin in search of lost knowledge and reliquaries, and none of it, I dare say, a challenge for the fantastic Frederick Phonypence. Allow me. And this is where you would interject yourself into something that a level 20 sorcerer would be able to simply do, but now you have to improvise, and you have to improvise some way in order to achieve it, or to simply spoof it and claim you have achieved it. In which case, you're failing, but then you can misdirect and, play up, and maybe it succeeds, in which you can gain the glory. So there's that aspect of it too. However, that is simply one example of how to play this character like, and there are plenty more to be had as you level and progress with your party. Lean more towards a fruity, grandiose vocabulary that overstates the reality, if at all real, of what had actually transpired, and trail on ever so knowingly about your own accomplishments. Of course, though, that is a lot to consider and a lot to portray within one character, and it's going to take some practice. It's going to take some time to master it and find the right spot between somehow endearing the other players wanting to murder you. For a reference to look at, we of course have Lockhart himself. He takes more to the cowardly side because once he goes into an actual life-threatening situation, he freezes. Or if we want, we can look at Bertrand Bell from the Search for Grog, in which he is overcome by his bloodlust and he goes charging alone after 5 bugbears to retrieve Percy's arm. Regardless, however you play this character, just have fun with it. Respect those at your table. I certainly hope this was helpful. I really enjoyed this one. It was a lot of fun to play this up a bit. If you stayed this long, thank you so very much. Consider subscribing, liking, commenting. I would love to grow and reach out and share in this passion of mine. Find others who feel the same. Regardless, thank you and have a lovely day.